Tuesday offering. Mark here, happy to be with you with a real impressive group of people coming through. David Cay Johnston being perhaps top of that list. Also, the great Anthony Davis from Midas Touch will be here. Yeah, also happens to be my favorite Britisher. So he'll be here in just a few minutes. I've got a flashback to a couple of things that will whip your head around. Among the things we'll flash back to today is Charlie Kirk video, essentially predicting a lot of what we're seeing from the very people who make up this administration. I have Tulsi Gabbard predicting what is happening within the administration that she has pledged allegiance to. She's singing a different song now than she was singing back then. Some specifics on the origins of this conflict in Iran, how it started, when it started, why it started. There is more and more now in terms of details, although this administration is short on details. They are long on smack talk, short on details. They love the boom, but they don't love the planning. And even as they were warned by their own generals, it would seem, General Raisin Cane among them, that this was not a good idea, it became a full speed ahead situation very quickly. So, Tony's here, Kim is here, we are all here, you are there. Feel free to chime in. We will integrate your comments and questions into the show as the show goes. Is it just me, or does my room seem dark today?
No, it looks the same as it always does.
It does? Is that right?
Tony,
you
look good.
I ask you. Kim always just says, I thought it was okay, no big deal. I mean, nobody noticed, blah, blah, blah.
I would say it was bad.
I don't see anything different. Maybe it's a little more darker in the corner. Yeah. Maybe.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay.
It's fantastic.
Maybe because the picture's clear because your internet's good today. I don't know.
I don't know what's happening with the internet. I've had to buy a backup system. It's all, it is what it is. But anyway, let's get on with things. Thank you for being here. Loving all of you.
Mark Thompson Show.
Anthony Davis is, Mark, you need better lighting. There it is. Playing on my insecurities, I don't know what
Well, he has a great setup. He's got I don't know what kind of lighting he has, but it's all very pro.
Oh, Anthony Davis?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God, yes, he's great. Mm-hmm. Isn't that better, what I'm doing right now? Isn't that brighter?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks better. Yeah, there you go. You get to your face a little
You know
better,
what I need is I need Hilo Karen instead of you mokes. I need Hilo Karen. You guys, you never tell me the truth. I have to go to Hilo Karen to find out.
It looks fine.
Why are you yelling?
Exactly. It looks fine. It looks fine. You remind me of my mom when she was just trying to get us out the door. You kids look fine. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Can we all just settle down, please?
Why are you yelling?
I mean, really. All right. There's a war on. My God.
There is. We have some early super chats.
All right. Quickly, I do want to recognize one Obo Jusco. Bienvenido. We have, what is that? 49 mexicanos. Those are pesos? MX? I don't know. But I'll tell you what, whatever it is, I love it. Pesos. Thank you. What is it, Tony? Is it pesos?
Yes.
Okay. 49 pesos.
That's nice.
Sounds good. Mark, you look good in OLED. I can see everything, says Jay Andrew. Yeah, that's those are those big TVs, those nice TVs, the OLED. Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to the Mark T. Late Show. Get it? I get it. Chaplain Fred. Thank you.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. And Last Angry Manny, happy it is Tuesday
Big
with a
shout
$2
out.
Super Chat. All right.
How does the internet work?
Okay, I don't know. People, I don't know how much of anything works anytime, but the lighting is fine. I like the gritty realism. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Here's to you all. I am drinking my Coachella Valley coffee. I recommend it. They are wonderful. They've been our sponsor partners for the
best.
Born to Peacefully Protest is the mug you can get at getmarkmerch.com with our logo tastefully emblazoned on the backside. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm drinking the Clarity blend, which I really recommend. But you check out what's best for you. It is a hand-roasted coffee. Mark T is your discount code at checkout. You'll get 10% off. And if you're going to the tennis in the desert for Southern Californians, they are there in a big way. Coachella Valley Coffee, this small business, I've been drinking their coffee forever. They are growing, and you're part of that growth. And they have a real foothold in the tennis event that's going on in the desert, the PNB event, the BNP event. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use our discount code MarkT. Tea, coffee, spices, hand-curated, organic, and sourced from women-owned farms. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Bravo,
Put
guys.
that coffee down.
All right, let's get Anthony
The Mark
on.
Thompson Show.
Yeah.
This is Mark Thompson.
It is it's a conflict filled with contradictions, filled with shifting stories. The war in Iran is marked by amateurism, in my judgment. It's marked by a casualness that was displayed from even the earliest moments of Americans being informed on this war. It wasn't an American president coming on television or coming on even a simulcast through digital media of any kind announcing the war. It was a taped broadcast that was delayed, edited, the president in a golf hat, and the remarks curated such that we really didn't know much, except that we were going to win. We didn't even understand what winning was. He didn't build a case particularly for going into Iran. He finished a State of the Union address during which the Iran business was just a small fraction. This is a guy who was days away from launching a full-scale war effort that may undo the Middle East and the world economy. So I'll get you through a lot of videos today from his administration functionaries. I'm talking with people like Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, et cetera. Also Trump himself. But it's worth taking a step back and looking at how we got here and where we're going and what truly may happen. And to do that, I invited in my favorite Britisher. You know, I do adore him. I watch his stuff. I read his Substack. He is on the Midas Touch Network, and he joins us whenever I can prevail upon him successfully to make the trip over. And so here he is on your feet for the magical, the brilliant Anthony Davis, everyone. Yeah. And so it is, sir. Thank you for being here. Thoughts on where we are in this conflict and how we got here?
Whoa, how long have you got? I mean, I think we sometimes focused on how these things are supposed to play out when you have like a regular president in. So, I mean, even George W. Bush came in for a lot of criticism, but he still had people around him, and he still tried to work within the framework of international law. Went to Congress, for example, before he attacked Iraq. But we're not dealing with a regular administration now. And so that's why for people to be kind of pulling their hair out, as you can see I've done, simply because it's not following the traditional process, I'm just not surprised at any of it. I mean, we're dealing with despotism. We're dealing with a guy who is completely deranged, both from a dementia perspective, but also narcissistic personality disorder perspective, and is surrounded by people with similar attributes. So what do we expect, Mark? I mean, this is a rogue government that somehow managed to get the keys to the largest economy and largest military in the world. This is a recipe for disaster. And, the thing that interests me the most at the moment is the different versions of events being given by Pete Hegseth, by Marco Rubio, and by Donald Trump himself. Completely different assessments of whether this is a war or whether it's just a sustained air attack. It's so obvious that there is no strategy, there is no through line, there is no one in charge. I mean, 6 U.S. casualties is where a lot of the media is focused. There's going to be a whole lot more than that. But, what about the people in the Fairmont Hotel in Dubai who were on vacation, who got hit by a bomb? He doesn't seem to realize. He even said today, or it might have been last night, he said, we struck Iran, but now all these other countries are being hit. And he said it like he had no idea that this was even a possibility. And the problem is, Mark, that if you fire all of the senior intelligence officials in your orbit, if you get rid of them because you don't like their expertise, if you get rid of all the legal analysts and senior lawyers working in those departments too because you don't like their analysis and you don't care for their expertise, what are we left with? We're basically left with one old man who is rotting in the hands and the neck and the cankles, who cannot string a sentence together, and who's just going to do whatever he wants and is surrounded by people. People haven't really spoken about Stephen Miller with this. This is all Stephen Miller. This is an extension of rounding up people of color in America. This is an extension of ethnic cleansing. They see the Iranians as people of color. The fewer there are of those on the planet, the better, as far as these white supremacists are concerned. So that's my short answer to your short question.
I think the Iranian profile in Trump's mind extends back to the 80s as well, in the late 70s. The Ayatollah, the Iranian Revolution, the terrorism birthed there, the Iranian hostages, the very clear notions he has. He even referenced it in one of his run-on gaggle type situations. He referenced the fact that they took hostages, and you can see that his view of, if you will, of Iran and the complexities associated with any kind of a move like this, his view hasn't evolved. He is stuck as he is with so many things when it comes to America in the past.
80s. Yeah. He's the man of the 80s. He still wears his clothes from the 80s. That's, to him, his pinnacle. That's when he had the most hair, when he was the most virile, when he was having the most sex. So to him, that is what, Donald Trump still looks like when he looks in the mirror. And therefore, his opinions from that period will never change. It's just so frustrating that you and I and others are having to analyze this guy, because this guy should be allowed nowhere near he shouldn't even be the chairman of a golf club, let alone the board of peace, which is so ironic considering they only met the day before he decided to attack Iran. But the other thing we shouldn't ignore here is Israel and its history, and a lot of far-right Christian nationalists' attitude towards Israel, seeing it as this holy land, they don't really think of it as the land of the Jews. They think of it as a place where they want to end up ultimately and be reborn into. And so, Israel clearly forced Donald Trump's hand. He said out loud this morning that they didn't force my hand. Well, that means they did force his hand, because, of course, you have to just reverse everything that he says because it's all projection. And, this is something that Netanyahu's been wanting to do for 40-odd years. And so he just needed a president that was dumb enough to be able to buy into that, because then it takes the heat off of Netanyahu, because he's got the support of the United States. So, we're looking at something else here. We're looking at, in one lane, we've got the kind of ethnic cleansing and all of these white supremacists in Trump's orbit that let's go get those Arabs, right? And then in the other lane, you've got the kind of land of Israel. Trump's been saying several times recently, I don't think I'm going to be going to heaven. These people, they think like this. They think about this idea that they can repent in some way or be, given the keys to the gates of heaven through by doing a good deed after they've done 100 bad deeds.
Yeah, by the way, I don't think Trump, and I don't think you think that Trump believes in heaven or God, or I think
But
he's...
he obviously is starting to think about his mortality because he
yes,
knows
that
that
I
he's
clearly
rotting.
agree with, yeah.
And
yeah.
so, obviously, he's not a religious person, but he is surrounded by people that are, and he's had to take on this role of being the kind of the second coming.
Sure.
You know,
He has to sing from that hymnal, yes.
So he's just surrounded by this rhetoric of this kind of deep nationalist Christianity, which is not Christianity at all, of course, but it's basically about breaking down that separation between church and state. And so Israel is a big part of that. And obviously the history US creating with the UK and others creating the land of Israel, so there is a kind of onus there to put Israel first. But the problem is Israel has its own problems, and they have their own Donald Trump, who is Benjamin Netanyahu.
And so to the timing, you alluded to it. Let me play for everyone Marco Rubio sort of speaking the quiet part out loud on this.
Yeah.
Cut 5, if you would, Tony, please.
Why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Okay, so there you go. That's Marco Rubio, really, as I say, stating it flat out. We knew Israel was going to launch, and we didn't want to be second to the party, and we were worried that we would suffer casualties and questioning after. But here's Donald Trump talking about that same thing as he was meeting with the German chancellor. Cut 11.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. And now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them.
So I, just as a quick note, would say, when he talks about the negotiators and the negotiation, it's a Witkoff and Kushner. Those are the guys who were taking the lead. Those guys they've been doing negotiations around real estate all their lives, but they haven't been involved in the kind of diplomacy, and they have no sort of cultural knowledge, that institutional knowledge that is required, I think, for any kind of negotiation of this type. But lastly, I would say, I don't even know how sincerely there was really a negotiation going on, because the Iranians offered up a lot, and in the end, the Americans were just all about the war.
It was a smokescreen, really, wasn't it? I mean, firstly, if you send two real estate moguls in to do negotiating for, to try and prevent a war, then you're not really serious, are you? And remember, Jared Kushner has a long history with Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu used to come and stay at the Kushner's house when Jared was a kid, and he would give over his bedroom so Netanyahu had somewhere to sleep. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And so We're talking about a bias that is so kind of baked in there. Witkoff, if you've ever heard him talk, he is completely out of his depth. And this talks a lot to the character of so many of these people, including Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi and all of these hench people, is that if you were as inexperienced as that lot and the President of the United States says, I want you to head up the U.S. military, or I want you to be in charge of negotiating with Iran to prevent a world war, if you were a regular person who had their wits about them, you'd say, thank you so much for the offer, but I'm not qualified for this. You need to get someone who's a professional, because I'm just, I could have a go, but I would be bluffing. And yet all of these people, especially Pete Hegseth, who is a co-host on Fox News at the weekend, is suddenly the head of the U.S. military and is just running with it, And so to the rest of us watching, we are like, how did you even agree to take this job? And this talks to the bravado and the ego and the narcissistic nature of a lot of these individuals who really cannot see reality, even in their rearview mirror. I mean, they are just so far gone. And that is very worrying. And then the other thing I would say about Trump there is notice the way that he's an actor. I always refer to him as an actor. He played the role of a businessman in The Apprentice. He played the role of Donald Trump in Home Alone 2. And now he's playing the role of a strongman. So he puffs himself up and he does this thing where he kind of tries to look authoritarian. And you can see that he's being an actor playing the role of a president who's in control, when we can all see that he is a man-child completely out of his depth, rotting from the outside, and is basically gone beyond the point of no return. And that's what makes all of this so dangerous, is because it's not just you and I and the people watching that can see this. It's every world leader. Sure. It's the Ayatollah. It's our European or former European allies. Everybody can see that this guy is a disaster. And so it is a real problem here, because it's almost like the president has been kidnapped, right?
No, the presidency has been kidnapped by a mad king, in a sense. And there is, the scary part is that he is dealing with the most powerful country on earth in so many ways, and he's making a mess of it. I would also say that what you're essentially saying, as you look at his administration and talk about his administration, is that it's populated by rank amateurs, people who are way in over their head, and yet they're there for different reasons, I'd suggest. I agree with you on the power. I think everybody wants that power.
But it's in every department. I mean, look at education. A woman running the wrestling federation.
Sure.
She called AI A1. Like A1 steak sauce, Mark. I mean, this is the standard that we're having to deal with.
But in the case of Iran and the Middle East and these negotiations, and I'd include Russia and Ukraine in this, and there's documented reporting on this, you've got Witkoff and Kushner, and I think in that, it's not just power, it's opportunism. Yeah. They see a tremendous self-enrichment associated with so many of these various conversations and negotiations that they've been involved in. Witness what happened at the end of Trump season 1. At the end of the 4 years, Kushner decides to put out a shingle. He has an investment fund, and the Saudis come in for $2 billion just to get him started. And so I think all of these things have come together in this big, ugly mess, and we're here in a Middle Eastern conflict that is so much bigger than these amateurs have any sense about.
And I'm worried that there's no one to come to the rescue, because ordinarily, NATO or somebody might step in, but nobody wants to, because Trump is toxic and America is toxic. And so this is why it's going to be a forever war. It's because, Trump needs allies. I mean, he's about to fall out with the United Kingdom over it, because, Keir Starmer, who Trump said is no Winston Churchill, that went down like a cup of cold sick. He didn't want to allow the bases to be used for this conflict. And eventually he was kind of strong-armed into it, reluctantly. But, it's very difficult when other countries have always seen America as a rock. In the UK, we refer to it as the special relationship, a phrase coined by Churchill, and then Reagan and Thatcher used it. But actually, Trump doesn't know what that is. In fact, most presidents since Reagan have not really referred to the special relationship. It's only Britain that keeps it going. And so the problem is that the special relationship has been broken by one half. We've basically been dumped, and it hurts. There is grief associated with this, aside from the fact that the UK, of course, has no other decent trading partners. It screwed itself with Brexit, so was relying on the United States to make that deal. And so then you have all this issue with tariffs and all these relationships that he's ruined because he's over-tariffed people, because he thinks they're ripping him off, doesn't understand about reciprocal tariffs and economies being of different size. So he hasn't just screwed up militarily, he hasn't just screwed up culturally and socially and financially. It's in every area that his lack of expertise has caused a great rift with, and I refer to former allies intentionally, because I do not see Europe as an ally anymore. They are a cautious, unwilling partner.
Oh, well, they've made themselves sort of this vassal state. As a result, they become completely connected to the U.S. in ways that are now, they're seeing, grotesquely unfair. And in this situation, they find themselves even deeper in with the complicated relationship with the Americans. In fact, Spain, play cut 3, Spain gets blasted by Trump today as he is angry that they would not play ball during this conflict. Here you go.
But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership.
Okay, so that is Spain. Now you can cross off Spain from the relationships that exist with the U.S. And I want to get back to the war itself. Of course, he, as I was saying before, really never has taken the effort and never organized the coherence, even faux coherence, necessary to sell this war to the American people. The causes, the causes for American involvement, the triggers for the timing, it's all shifting constantly. The story shifting was first nukes, then it was these long-range missiles. They were about to attack us. I mean, all of these stories, which seem patently false, to try to, I guess, cobble together some sort of explanation. There seemed no coherence even within his administration. Play a little bit of Pete Hegseth. This is cut 6, and Hegseth just does his Fox and Friends tough talk. He likes to kind of smack talk like a frat boy.
Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change.
I mean, this is the kind of, to me, he's stomach turning to me. I mean, he's just, this is like reading his teleprompter copy on that Fox Weekend show.
He's another actor, isn't he? He's just acting.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
Let's read into this, because what you just said is really important, Mark. They don't seem to care about how the American people is digesting this. Now, that is really important because, especially in an election year, especially with the midterms coming up, why don't they seem to care? Now that, just kind of rewind a little bit. We know about their plans for the election. We know that they have got it locked down and rigged. We know that he says things like, I don't need your votes, I got plenty of votes. We know that there is a system in place to kind of ring fence the Republicans under Donald Trump to maintain their authority. Because, yes, you've got the states, but you've also got this guy in office in the White House who's building a giant bunker/ballroom with golden drapes and is never going to leave. So he doesn't really care about public opinion anymore. It's quite clear if he did, they would have gone and done an address to the nation before they dropped any bombs. But it's irrelevant now. And so we have to take our lessons from history. And this is the behavior of dictators, this unitary-style government, where what he says goes. Now, I think that he'll end up bringing Hegseth and Rubio in line once he looks at the newspapers and recognizes that there are kind of multiple versions of events. I mean, he already admitted when he said we may have forced Israel's hand. I mean, he basically just perjured himself and admitted that he's just started an illegal war. So he definitely cannot stop being president or leave the United States now. It's done, right? He is a war criminal. And so we are in a new situation where people need to wake up and recognize that this regime has no intention of giving people the vote in November, whether it uses war powers to cancel elections or some other method. They have multiple methods in place this time around. And so it's not even like it can swing. You know, I've been talking to people that, well, when the pendulum swings back, it ain't going to swing. There's no room for that anymore because all of these individuals, from Hegseth and especially Bondi and everybody else, they are all basically criminals now. And so they cannot be allowed to walk free because someone is going to put cuffs on them. And they don't want that. So let's be very clear that getting the authority from the American people is not on their agenda. You'll even see that the far-right community now, the Benny Johnsons and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and all that, they are all criticizing Trump. They're saying we did not want this. Megyn Kelly's saying it. We're hearing it on Fox. So he's losing the support of his base, and he still doesn't care. That's because he has no plan to go anywhere or give people back their democracy.
Charlie Kirk spoke about what's happening, and it's eerie how the Kirk remarks resonate with what's happening today. Play a little bit of that, if you would, please, Tony.
Let's do some updates about Israel and Iran and potentially the United States. On one side is the Lindsey Graham, John Bolton types, where they are actively calling for regime change. Here is Lindsey Graham. This is just lunacy. This kind of analysis is not helpful. This kind of approach, this kind of argument, it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons at this point. This is now that we want to go all in and take out the regime. It's time for us to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient and great power with well over a dozen ethnic groups. You have...
I mean, it feels like Charlie Kirk understood the situation far better than Trump did.
Well, that's why he was no longer useful. I mean, I find it a bit weird that you're playing Charlie Kirk clips. I understand the reference, but I find it a little chilling, I'll be perfectly honest, because, you know, it's not that it's too soon, but it's just so weird. This, you know, Charlie Kirk was also calling for the release of the Epstein files, one should remind us. But we are looking at he's right about the fact that there are factions of the GOP that have wanted this for years. And, you know, the white supremacists, they see Iran as an unnecessary evil. And the irony is now that when Trump says these are evil people, these are terrible people, these are bad hombres, he now, because of his recent history as a warmonger, has done far worse or as bad as these regimes he is seeking to destroy, with no plan for, you know, rebuilding or recovery. And so, you know, once you get to the point of executing American citizens on the streets of the U.S. on video, I don't personally think you can go much lower than that. But, you know, Renee and Alex, that story now has come and gone. We've moved on. Great for Trump, you know, a little more distraction. But, you know, how low can we get? He is as bad as the Ayatollah. He is as bad. I mean, 168 girls killed in a school now is the latest number. I mean, he doesn't feel any of this. He has no empathy. He doesn't have any sense of humanity. And so we are witnessing a despot, the likes of Mussolini and Stalin and Hitler. We are seeing it in real time, speaking from the Oval Office. And this is very, very worrying, that we can't just be like, oh, it's Trump being Trump. You know, we have crossed the Rubicon now. And like, they set up a skiff at Mar-a-Lago the other day. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, we've showed it here that there's like kind of thin curtains around it.
Just
I mean, this
curtains
yeah.
with people peeking around and him being briefed, and then this graphic on the screen behind him, which you zoom in and you can actually see some of their plans. And I'm just like, this is amateur hour. He just goes through the motions of playing the role of the president like he's on a TV show or a game show. I think one of your people wrote here on the thread, and I get a sense that the world is having to scramble and pull together and work out how they can deal with this menace, because there is nothing to really stop him. There is nobody above him.
I think it's not only amateur hour, as we've said, but it's also the lack of seriousness, which is reflected in the scene that you describe.
Yeah.
That they set up these sort of makeshift table, chairs, and surrounding monitors, et cetera, and he has his advisors meet him there at his club. It's, you won't even get on a plane, go back to Washington, to the office, as you launch perhaps the most definitive foreign policy decision America will be part of in decades.
Right.
It's outrageous. But again, it speaks to the lack of seriousness. And on some level, this is the way it works across the board. I think you're so right to point to the rest of his administration. And, just speaking of the rest of his administration, these people, all of them around him, including Pete Hegseth and the rest, they not only were his choices. I mean, he doesn't know anything about anything. He sees this guy on Fox News Channel who talks smack, and he goes, I want him for my, Secretary of Defense. And, that guy, I want her, the Bondi, the one we bought out for $25,000 in Florida. I want her to be my Attorney General, et cetera. But Republicans, who were in control of the confirmation process largely, they had to sign on to all this. And RFK Jr. and all the rest passed those hurdles. And so on some level, the last chance to push Hegseth back onto the heap, that was missed, because his people are so loyal, scared, combination of both, that they let it all pass.
And that's why they won't be fired. All this call for, Pam Bondi's going to be fired or Kristi Noem's going to be fired. Of course they're not going to be fired. They are exactly what he wants. They are henchmen. They carry the can for him. They lie for him. And they are loyal to him, as you say. And so this is the perfect people. Who's he going to replace them with? Better people? No, he doesn't want better people. And so, it's hard when it's a little bit like, people that are highly intelligent, they would never tell you that they're highly intelligent. Trump tells us that he's smart all the time. And this is a problem. By surrounding himself by people that are as stupid as he is, allows him to kind of play the authority. And, these people are good at one thing. They're good at gaslighting, and they're good at lying for him, and they're good at being loyal. And apparently the reason Stephen Miller has been so successful pushing through all of this 3,000 arrests a day and, not investigating these ICE killings and everything else is because he blows so much smoke up Trump's backside, and Trump loves it. He knows exactly how to manipulate him. And I've often referred to, and I may have done it on your show, but I try and talk about it a lot, is this concept of elder abuse. Yes, Trump is the dictator. Yes, Trump is a racist. Yes, Trump is a kind of greedy nutcase. But the elder abuse aspect of this should not be underestimated. And this is where these people that surround him are taking advantage of the fact that he is not all there. The lights are on, but no one's home. And that he doesn't really care. He cares about the drapes, the golden drapes in the ballroom and elsewhere. That is where his interest is. He's just an actor playing a president who really wants to be a painter and decorator and kind of a realtor, right? So they know how to play him. They know when the best time to get him is, after his rest or maybe before his rest, when he's like, oh, and they're like, sign this, Mr. President. Oh,
play me the Trump and curtains thing, because he's referenced it a couple of times. Cut 7.
We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down, right now you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But, and it'll be spectacular.
What were we talking about?
The most beautiful ballroom. I believe it, because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, will the pile drivers ever stop? You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here? You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be $400 million or less. Most people say $400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money, so I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, this is getting crazy. I said, don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months. But now, for the reason that we're gathered this morning to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, one living
what a segue.
And 2 no longer with us.
I mean, it's just an incredible thing to see.
You know that game at Christmas that families play, the word association game, right? So
yeah,
if I
like
say
Mad
curtains,
Libs or word association, okay, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I say curtains, you say gold, right? You say gold, I say Mar-a-Lago. I say Mar-a-Lago, you say balls. And so this is how his brain works, right? It's like the Christmas word association game. So he's not supposed to be talking about the ballroom. He's supposed to be there to honor service personnel who've fallen in this war. But, you know, he probably sees someone looking at the golden curtain, so he kind of looks and goes, oh, golden curtain. And then his brain goes, curtains. And this is what we're dealing with. It's like squirrel. This is what we're dealing with. And so he must have been jacked up for the State of the Union speech, because he managed to keep that together for 1 hour and 47 minutes somehow. I don't quite know how, you know, Adderall or whatever the, you know, accessory is. But we're dealing with somebody who is on a completely different planet.
And I also think there's a tone-deaf quality to this that is so, it's so, again, I use the word grotesque. I mean, there is
the lack
a
of self-awareness.
Yeah, and I mean, if any other world leader did this, they would be pilloried by media, and I think perhaps he is elsewhere. But I mean, meanwhile, you know, his war may not be going so well. I know I only have another for a minute or so, but I wanted to play a little bit of the fact that it's out there that munitions are an issue. I mean, that we're expending so much in the way of munitions that we are losing perhaps our ability to prolong this conflict, which is sort of like, you know, Trump's view is we can stay for as long as we need to.
America
Here's what
could lose this war. I mean, that's the other thing that he kind of doesn't realize, is that they could easily lose simply because Iran has been preparing for this for an awfully long time, and it's way too protracted now. And with no strategy,
I'd also
they're
say
screwed.
The kind of wars that are fought now are more in the way that sort of guerrilla wars are fought against enemies that are far more powerful. America's seen the power of guerrilla war in Vietnam. They've seen it in Iraq. Now it takes on drones as the sort of method of delivery of a bloody nose to the Americans. And meanwhile, we're firing off $1 million missiles. They're firing off something that costs $20,000. They can. Here's what he posted, though. I wanted to. Either way, Tony. Yeah, go ahead. Let's see what he said. The United States munition stockpiles have, at the medium and upper medium grade, never been higher or better. He says, as was stated to me today, we have virtually unlimited supply of these weapons. Wars can be fought, quote, forever and very successfully using just these supplies, which are better than other countries' finest arms, exclamation point. At the highest end, we have good supply, but are not where we want to be. Much additional high-grade weaponry is stored for us in outlying countries. Sleepy Joe Biden spent all of his time and our country's money, and this is in capital letters, giving everything to P.T. Barnum Zelensky of Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars worth. And while he gave so much of the super high-end away free in capital letters, he didn't bother to replace it. Fortunately, I rebuilt the military in my first term and will continue to do so. The United States is stocked and ready to win big in capital letters with 4 exclamation points. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump, in capital letters. Here is Mark Warner talking about this, the senator.
For cost estimates. Clearly, when you combine the efforts of the amount of munitions that we have spent over the last year attacking the Houthis, the amount of munitions that's been spent on other ventures, I think the 7 different military conflicts the president has put America into, our munitions are low. That's public knowledge. It will require additional funding. Funding where we have other domestic needs as well.
So it's being acknowledged then by more and more. I want to just mention that to you, Anthony Davis, and that is that, wars are expensive. This war is extremely expensive. And meantime, so much of America is kind of falling apart. You see the real lack of attention paid to infrastructure and things in this country that could so benefit from the sort of debt we're incurring as we write these checks to these armed conflicts, which you suggest, I think appropriately, may not go our way. I mean, you could easily lose this whole thing.
But wars are also highly profitable for America. So yes, there is the expense to the public purse, but the private sector benefits to the tune of billions. And so Trump knows that, and he's probably being lobbied by these arms companies all the time. It's very interesting to hear Trump lie about the timeline, though, that, we have now this great stockpile because I rebuilt it all in my first term. But Joe Biden then gave all those weapons away.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Exactly.
Well, Joe Biden was only president once, and that was after Trump's first term. So what, he gave them all away, and now Trump has replenished them? No, he said he replenished them in his first term.
Yeah.
So he got caught in another lie in a way that, hopefully people that have previously supported him are going to start to realize. And we even had Nick Fuentes saying earlier today, vote for Democrats or don't vote at all, because Trump is lying to us about this war. This kind of far-right nationalist fringe podcaster is now against Trump. And I have to say, I've never been a fan of Marjorie, but she's
throwing heat.
She is throwing some heat right now. And I am very impressed with her eloquence, because she has now found her voice. And who knew that her voice was not kind of slagging off and owning the libs and all that stuff? Her voice is actually turning against the very president that she gave years of her life to support, because she recognizes the truth. And it started with Epstein and her empathy for the survivors. And now it's about the fact that she voted for Trump because he was the no new war president. And within a matter of months, he's taken the world to war. I mean, this is a world war now, with the number of countries involved and with the reluctant involvement of our former allies, but also countries that had really nothing to do with this, now being on the receiving end of missile attacks that, Iran is basically taking it to the next level. Where was the intelligence? Where was the planning? And where were the projections about how badly wrong this could go if they didn't manage it properly? The diplomatic aspect of this, as you said earlier, was never a real thing. It was a phony event. All those shots of Witkoff and Kushner sitting with the negotiator just for the cameras.
Yeah.
They had nothing to say.
It was already laid out, the plan, on the part of the Israelis, and I think on the part of the Americans as well. There's been a lot of reporting on that the entire thing was pretty much baked and ready to go as of the 28th of January. So,
well, we've been predicting this for years, though. I mean, I remember in his first term, I was saying he's going to attack Iran, he's going to attack Iran. And obviously, because there were adults in the room back then, he was prevented from doing so. But we don't have a Mark Milley now, or a General Mattis, or any of these people. We don't even have a Rex Tillerson, for goodness sake. And whoever thought we would put him on a pedestal? So this is where it's at now. We are dealing with a rogue leadership surrounded by hench people who are all on the payroll and who are having a great time of it. But I just remind you that underlying a lot of this is this American exceptionalism and white supremacy. And the more countries, I mean, they did bomb Nigeria, for goodness sake. You know, that they just want to kind of pick all of these nations. I mean, Yemen has been absolutely destroyed since Trump came back in. And it doesn't really get the headlines. So we have to be very aware that we are dealing with a professional warmonger. And he loves it. He gets off on it. And
well, it's also, it's completely unchecked. You know, the pardon power, the military power, unchecked. As it seems, most of his powers, of course, he thought the tariff power would be completely unchecked, and it seems to be restrained on some level. Yeah. But, you know, most of the things that he's doing, he seems to view, and this was, again, talked about by those who worked in his first term, the fact that he had authoritarian instincts and impulses, and yet, you know, again, this was ignored.
Well, the pressure of the vote is gone as far as I see it now. And that's normally what keeps leaders in check, is the pressure of the vote and knowing that their tenure can be cut short. And I don't think that is an issue for him anymore. You know, there's a whole lot that we don't know about, you know, with the purchase of Dominion voting systems and all this stuff that's going on behind the scenes, is that I think he's been assured that the election is his. And so that gives him carte blanche to do whatever he likes. And it's so sad. I mean, I've been very depressed about all of this, and I'm sure a lot of your viewers have too, is that it weighs on us. It is like a grief for the loss of democracy in the United States. And I wrote a Substack about it. It was actually, I think, my most popular posting, because it talked to this collective sadness associated with seeing one of the greatest countries in the world become one of the saddest countries in the world, the loss of its moral standing in the world, it set the standard for a lot of other nations, and that now is dead and buried.
I'd also say it happened so quickly from the very first hours. You know, they went over even the heads of any sorts of regulatory powers that were in place.
Well, it's a decade, isn't it? Because, you know, remember, Trump never stopped campaigning. He was rallying all the way through Biden's tenure. So for basically a decade, this is what's happening. Well, if you look at the timeline of Hitler's rise, it's a similar time. You know, the period at which he was able to convert Germans into Nazis and do it over time, and lying to them and gaslighting them, and eventually, you know, most of them turned, and the rest tried to get out or died. And
I mean, the similarities on some level are there. I pointed this out before. Hitler had a period of great popularity. Trump has not had that. I mean, he is not a popular president, and now he is going to really see some polling that is reflective of anger on the part of the public. But I don't, as you say, he may continue unrestrained because in a way it doesn't matter. But I just think the Hitlerian thing, the parallels break down a bit in some ways, and but the authoritarian grasp he has is definitely a clean parallel.
You can use Putin as an alternative example then, because Putin, you know, has been in for 24 years.
Sure.
And again, every election, I've won again. and this is the problem, is that we've always just assumed that voting is going to abide by the democratic process, but it requires everybody's buy-in.
Yes.
And if you know, those who are running it don't buy in, then it is unfair by definition.
People should go to your Substack, Anthony Davis on Substack, also the Midas Touch Network. Anything else I need to mention? Because you're very lovely to come over here and spend some time.
Well, I have a new show called Global AF on the Legal AF channel as well. So check that out, dealing with global affairs, these types of issues, and seeing how the rest of the world views America. And yeah, the Substack, The Anthony Davis, is where you'll find me.
Yeah. Anthony Davis, everybody. My favorite Britisher, I might add. Give our best to everyone across the way there. And hang on tight, because sadly, this is not over, Anthony Davis. And I fear the worst. So thank you. We'll talk again. All the best, my friend.
Appreciate it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm grateful to Anthony Davis. You can find a link to his Substack under this video. Take a quick second before David Cay Johnston comes on. I've got so much to ask David about. I do want to recognize our partner, and I am talking about Sweet 106 Bakery.
Woohoo!
Yeah, pretty crazy. This small business started in such a simple way, in a literal suite of, that's why it's called SUITE, Sweet 106. Sweet 106 Bakery. She goes on and wins Cupcake Wars twice.
Two times, yeah.
Yeah.
And was voted the best cupcake in America.
And there she is. She's such a doll, and she's so lovely, and she's so about family and community. I mean, you'd think she doesn't have any, arrogante. She's not. She's so down to earth. Anyway, Sweet 106 Bakery, she started it, and she created this wonderful way in which you can get into these delights. There's the rainbow, and it's 3.5 cupcakes in a special container packed for you after you order. They do a lot of small batch baking, and they send it out to you promptly. Sweet106bakery.com. Use our discount code MarkT for 15% off. I sent it to everybody. Tony got some, Kim got some, Albert got some, and
the flavors and textures are perfection.
That says it. Sweet106bakery.com. MarkT for 15% off. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
this guy is, what can I say? You know how I feel about David Cay Johnston. Pulitzer Prize winner, co-founder of DCReport.org, brilliant investigative journalist, best-selling author, now professor at RIT. And when it comes to Trump, he is without peer. David Cay Johnston. Hello, sir.
Hello. How are you today, Mark?
I am well. I'm very anxious to talk to you, and I want to ask you about something that I think you posted a video about. In fact, it really was striking, because you backed up something which I had referenced on the show, and I referenced that the cake was baked before this whole thing started, and while the quote negotiations were going on. There were negotiations supposedly, again, done by these amateur real estate opportunists, I think, Witkoff and Kushner. But anyway, they were doing these negotiations, and, we're getting this deal, we're getting that deal, they've made these concessions, they've made those concessions. We're getting all these updates on how the negotiations were going. But you were suggesting that, and again, when you said it, I believed it, that there was already a plan in place to go to war, even as these negotiations were going on. So the negotiations, in a sense, were lacking legitimacy.
Yeah, I didn't say it quite that way, but that's clearly the implication of what I wrote. So in Geneva, there were indirect talks going on. The Iranian emissaries are in one room, and in another room are Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, the two real estate guys with no experience in diplomacy. And going in between is the foreign minister of Oman, named Badar. And as soon as the talks break off, not because of any disagreement, they were expected to take up again, but they broke off. He hops a plane to Washington. And Badar speaks to various people there, including my former colleague, David Rody. We worked together at both the New York Times and at Reuters. And David, who's a two-time Pulitzer winner, was the fellow who was captive of the Taliban for about 7 or 8 months some years ago. A brilliant reporter. And Badar, the foreign minister of Oman, tells him that the Iranians offered Donald Trump a much better deal than Barack Obama got in 2015, the expectation being that Trump would then say, oh, look what an idiot Barack Obama is, look what a genius I am, and embrace the deal, which included inspections, a renewed promise not to make nuclear weapons, which the Ayatollahs have said all the way along because they regard nuclear weapons as unholy, and American oil companies can come back into Iran. And then Donald Trump turns around and begins bombing. From the point of view of the government in Tehran, how else would you see us except liars, cheats, and perhaps even savages? This is not conducting yourself in any kind of responsible way. And Trump continues to tell these fantastic lies. You know, Iran is the biggest sponsor of state terrorism in the world. No, it's not. Saudi Arabia is. And by the way, who is Donald all comfy and friendly with and his family's getting rich off of? The Saudis. This is just appalling. But not only is there no legal basis or factual basis for what we are doing. The Iranians don't have nuclear weapons. The Iranians do not have ballistic missiles can reach the U.S. They do have some that can reach Eastern Europe, parts of Europe. They're not a direct threat to us. And the President of the United States only has authority to take defensive actions without Congress. The Constitution is crystal clear about this. And look where we are. And this is spiraling out of control, which is exactly, by the way, what the leaders of a number of Middle East nations, the Saudis, the Qataris, the Emiratis, told the Trump administration would happen if they attacked Iran.
I would say one thing, though, David, because there's been a lot of reporting on the Saudis and the fact that MBS was pushing for this, actually. There were 4 calls to Trump saying, do this now. The reporting's been pretty good on this, that MBS really is someone who helped animate Trump's impulse to jump into this thing.
And yet, a few weeks ago, they had a different position about this. And by the way, the reason that various of the Middle East governments are concerned about this is 1,401 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad died. And a schism immediately arose in Islam, which was a minor nascent religion at the time, between does succession go to the children of the prophet or does it go by appointment? Well, Sunnis who do not accept ancestral ascension, they control almost all of the Middle East, everything pretty much except for Iran. But they all have large Shia or Shiite minorities in their countries. And we've seen that Shia Muslims in Pakistan have been rioting and attacking various properties. There's some limited reporting out of Saudi Arabia, which is an absolute police state, but some limited reporting suggesting there's been some of this in Saudi Arabia. And all of these countries are worried about that. Bahrain, remember Bahrain, among the brutality and cruelty of the Middle East Sunni governments. Bahrain is so cruel that when there was demonstrations against the government by people in the Shia minority, and this is, 10, 12 years ago, a doctor at the hospital who was in the emergency room who treated people who simply were brought into the emergency room. That's all he did, is people are coming in the emergency room, you're a doctor, you treat them. They executed him for doing that. That's how cruel and monstrous these people that Donald regards as our friends. And so, by the way, did presidents before. I don't want to just pick on him. I think others sort of tolerated these governments. Donald embraces these governments. And Donald announced the war will be over in 4 weeks. Mark, have you ever seen a war with an expiration date like you find on cheese in the grocery store?
I mean, he thinks everything is a walkover, the way he, I think, was on this crack high out of Venezuela, and he suffered no real bloody nose as a result of taking out Soleimani. He's been able to get away with a lot, and I think he's surrounded by yes people, David. I mean, you've documented that. And so these amateurs who are, again, there just to please the mad king, they create this sense in him that he can do anything, and America is so mighty that, again, there'll be no stickiness to anything that we get into. This is just the opposite, of course.
Yeah, and Donald basically believes in the kind of magical thinking children do. So everybody listening to the show or watching who's been a parent knows little children, they have imaginary friends. They think they can fly through the air. And we're supposed to grow out of that and become mature adults. Donald continues to believe that he is the only person in the world, that he's special. He should run the entire planet. And if you disagree with him, well, something's wrong with you. Fake news. And this one is coming back to hurt him. And there are lots of problems here. Japan, South Korea have no oil in their countries. They depend entirely on bringing oil in. China has some oil, and it has enormous reserves in salt domes and elsewhere that they've been building up. Nonetheless, all three countries are very disturbed that they may not be able to get the oil they want and need from the Middle East. We have persuaded the Western Europeans to get off of Russian oil and natural gas. Where do they get their natural gas and oil? From the Middle East. But the insurance companies have canceled all the insurance policies on the oil tankers and on the liquefied natural gas ships. The economic damage here will be substantial. And it isn't just the price of oil is popped up. Oil goes up and it goes down. It's a very volatile product. It's heavily tied to supply and demand. But the reverberations for this are not like skipping a rock over a lake. They're like dropping a multi-ton boulder from 100 feet into the middle of a lake. And 4 weeks from now, that they'll be all peace and joy. Oh, please.
The Straits of Hormuz, of course, have now been closed officially, but even prior to that, just right away, you had insurance companies beginning to mark up tremendously. I mean, 500% the kind of insurance that these ships have to take to begin these routes out of the Middle East. So effectively, is my point, you had a cessation of the oil. And so a lot of what you're talking about is going to happen. The remarks from Trump on Iran are bizarre against the backdrop of what was predicted for so long. I mean, in a sense, the thing that you're talking about was anticipated by even those who now populate his administration. Play me the Tulsi Gabbard cut. This was something that she ran, David, I think when she was running for president. Go ahead, cut 9.
Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran.
The sanctions kicking in at midnight Sunday target Iran's oil exports, banking, and shipping, even though UN inspectors say Iran is still complying with the nuclear deal.
The United States will pursue additional sanctions, tougher than ever before.
Third, he designated Iran's military as a terrorist organization.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced that the U.S. is designating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terror group.
Today, the United States is continuing to build its maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime. I am announcing our intent to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including its Quds Force, as a foreign terrorist organization.
With this terror designation, the U.S. can sanction pretty much anybody who talks to or deals with or has any business whatsoever with the IRGC.
And fourth, Fourth, he continues to deploy more and more U.S. troops to the region.
Well, just moments ago, the Pentagon authorized an additional 1,000 American troops to the Middle East in response to growing concerns over Iran.
The Trump administration announced yesterday that a U.S. aircraft carrier and a bomber task force are being sent to areas closer to Iran.
Yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. Let my message today be very clear. We are watching, and we will come after you.
We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran. I'm asking you to join me and support my legislation, the No More Presidential Wars Act.
I mean, that didn't age well, you know.
No,
she's now all on board.
And yet she's now the director of national intelligence, a job for which not only is she manifestly unfit, but there are serious reasons to think that she has improper connections with the Kremlin.
The statement I made on this show before this entire thing got to this point is now backed up, and I wanted to take my victory lap with you because I feel as though my sense of Trump is really informed by a lot of what I've read in your stuff, and that is that I'd said I think what was one of the things that dragged him across the finish line on this action was being told that there would be assassination attempts, there had been assassination attempts, that Iran was cooking up against him. And now, indeed, a lot of reporting on that. The Trump assassination attempts played into his decision to attack Iran from the Washington Post. I got him before he got me, Trump said to ABC, of killing Iran's supreme leader. You know, David, they, for Trump, have to package stuff very personally, right? And so I think directing him toward the threat that he personally faced as a result of Iran was yet one more way in which he could be animated toward making the decision.
Well, you were spot on right about exactly that. And there's no indication that the Iranians were targeting Donald Trump. Now, Trump may know something we don't know from signals intelligence or human intelligence. But I doubt that he really believed that because General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is under a death threat by the Tehran regime. And Donald Trump took away his security detail out of spite because he doesn't like what Milley said upholding our Constitution.
As he did with Bolton.
Yes, as he did with John Bolton. And on the other side of this, there's a reason that in warfare you typically do not kill the head of state. Now, if the head of state is a military person involved directly in the military, you can argue that, well, those are soldiers and they're all subject to attack. They're fair game. The Ayatollah is not a military person, though he's the commander-in-chief of the Iranian military forces. But what Donald Trump has now done is absolutely painted a target on himself. And Iranian military or intelligence people for sure have been having discussions about how do we kill that guy. Just not a smart thing to do. And, you know, we don't know who the clerics are going to choose as the next leader of the theocracy. But why would we think it might be a better devil than the devil we knew? You know, we've done an incredible job since the early 1950s of taking Iran and making it an enemy, so much so that 1,000 years of enmity with the Russians and the predecessor societies in the country we call Russia and Tehran were at each other's throats. And now we've gotten them into each other's arms. I mean, what genius we got, starting with especially Henry Kissinger, who has left us with many, many deep problems.
Yeah, that's interesting that they've really been cast as the villains of the Middle East. And I think a lot of what you've talked about with the Middle East and these other Gulf states is reflective of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which is very much, I think, something that's sort of a
And I'm not trying to justify anything the Iranians have done. They are a vicious, brutal regime. That's not the point. It's how do you handle things diplomatically? And you don't, as Donald seems to think, snap your fingers and the world does what you want to do. That's not how the world works. And we just keep making things worse. Iran is the most sophisticated culture in the Middle East. So if we figured out how to make friends with the natural leaders of the Middle East, no. We make our friends instead with people like MBS, the de facto head of the Saudi government, who about a dozen years ago had 39 imams publicly beheaded. Their crime? They prayed for a better government.
The posture of these people who run the U.S. government and who are prosecuting this war is so, on the one hand, flip and casual. Even the announcement of the war, David, was this thing that was delayed. I mean, it wasn't as though he came on with this sobriety and intensity and spoke simultaneously across all these platforms. He posted on the social network, and then it was kind of distributed across various digital platforms and network platforms, a taped address that was edited. He's wearing a golf cap as he's speaking, and I think the idea of not even selling this to the American people, not feeling compelled to build a case for something that is this extreme an action, I think it speaks to the way that his administration proceeds. It just proceeds with a chaos and, as I say, with a casualness and with a sense of no obligation. That
with absolutely no respect for the Constitution, which gives Congress the authority here to declare war. And something else, Donald Trump ran America first. We're going to put America first in every case. So according to Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, the reason that we engaged in this assault was that Netanyahu's government told our government, we're going to go attack. We think we can kill Khamenei. And so Rubio said, we concluded that there'd be fewer American deaths if we joined in than if we did nothing. That's an interesting calculus, but it also says something else. Donald Trump isn't the one then, if you believe that story, who put America first. Instead, it's Benjamin Netanyahu with his prize 350-pound pig with a ring in its nose that he's leading off to maybe the butcher shop.
Play the Rubio cut for David, and I'll follow it with the Trump cut because Trump reacted to it this morning. This is cut 5. Go ahead.
The question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Okay, so now Donald Trump, of course, is asked about this today as he meets with the German chancellor. And here he is from the now gilded Oval Office.
Your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. I think and now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them.
Well, everybody on this show and everybody who listens to this show and has talked on the show and is in the chat of the show, none of us were surprised. We talked about the fact that they would lash out at all. You know, it's preloaded. The Iranians, if you attack them.
A lot of the things Donald said there indicate to you just how ignorant he is. They were all sort of, we call them neutral countries getting along. No, that's not the case at all. He calls the Iranian diplomats lunatics. There he's projecting. If there's lunacy here, it's from Trump and the people who have embraced his mental illness, as Bandy Lee likes to point out. The ignorance of Donald Trump about the whole Middle East, about not understanding that this is an area the British carved up and set boundaries that had nothing to do with the historical nature of people by ethnic group, by religious group, by language, just whatever they wanted to do. And it has left this mess that we all have to deal with today. And by the way, there's absolutely no indication Iran was going to attack anybody. The Iranians have been quite consistent about, we don't want to attack anybody else. We want you to stop attacking us. They don't have the facilities to carry on a major long-running war. And what would they gain by doing this? This notion that, they're going to use a nuke, which they don't have, and they're going to bomb Israel. Well, nuclear weapons are defensive weapons. Use one, and the reaction you will get from the rest of the world is you'll be obliterated. So it is bizarre that Trump doesn't even understand the most basic things about nuclear weapons, which, by the way, that was the subject of Barack Obama's senior thesis at Harvard, Tactical and Strategic Nuclear Weapons, which he wrote quite eloquently.
What was the topic of Donald Trump's senior thesis, David?
Exactly. How to get a diploma without ever going to class.
He might have maybe written one up on drapes. Play for me a little bit of how he drifted today as he was speaking about, again, these are serious subjects, fallen soldiers who are being awarded at the White House, and he begins to speak about the improvements.
There are a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down right now, you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold. But I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, "Will the pile drivers ever stop?" They go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here. You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be $400 million or less. Most people say $400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money. So I like it. But my wife
it means
isn't
money.
thrilled.
It means grift, because the entire thing is full of grift.
I will look forward to when Donald Trump makes available the accounting ledgers on what it cost, who paid for it, and who were the suppliers. I'm not going to hold my breath. But
he'll file that with his senior thesis. Go ahead. Yes.
The disrespect Donald Trump just showed to the soldiers is extraordinary. And I'll tell you another bit of disrespect you can expect to see. I wonder if Donald Trump will show up as Barack Obama and Joe Biden and George W. Bush did at Dover Air Base when the bodies of those now 4 service people are returned home. Can't imagine it. Remember, Donald Trump claimed he had hundreds of friends who died in the Twin Towers. never went to a single funeral, and he never was able to name a single person who died. But how sick.
They'll prevail upon him, David, to your point.
And go to drapes.
Yeah, they'll prevail upon him. I think there'll be heavy pressure for him to sir. I think it would be a good thing for you to go. Susie Wiles will hit hard for him to be there to do that. It'll be very interesting to see if he taps out and actually shows up or not. You know, he's not a big one for that stuff. You're right, but he plays the part. And if that's the symbolism he needs to kind of play for the moment, he may. Meantime, you know, the world burns, David. It's a scary situation. Yeah.
And there's no reason to think that this war is going to be, as he hopes, turned off like a light, and that there won't be long-lasting effects from these things. It's the same problem that Netanyahu is creating long-term for Israel. He is creating enmities that are going to last 100 years into the future because of the things that he's doing. And this may surprise some of the audience, but, there are people in Pakistan that we have film of and some other places who are absolutely furious over the killing of Khamenei. Why? Because if you are a Shia Muslim, he was your symbol of strength and light. And so they see him very differently than we do. And they see this as nothing but cold-blooded murder of a religious leader. The way, imagine if the Chinese were to assassinate the Pope, the reaction in the U.S. Think of it in those terms. And again, not good people, not doing good things. The theocracy has not been good for Iran or for the world. But nonetheless, the way Trump has chosen to respond to this is illegal. It is going to be it is already out of control, and it isn't going to achieve what he thinks it's going to achieve.
Last thing, David, in the last minute, his party will close ranks around him as they always do. I mean, the ramifications are so intense, as was noted here. I just wonder at what point this unpopular war begins to have a stink that GOP doesn't want to have on them.
Well, tomorrow, when we have voting results from Texas and from North Carolina, we may have a better image of what's going to happen here. There are a number of Republicans who are not running again because they believe they would lose. The U.S. Supreme Court just did something in line with this, extraordinary and deeply troubling, and it tells you how much it is not a court of the Constitution, but a court of protecting Donald Trump. Here in New York State, there was redistricting done midterm because Texas and some other places did it. And the court has now held that one of the redistricts is invalid because it was designed to ensure that black and brown people would elect someone instead of a white member of Congress. The issue isn't that the court made that decision. It's that that issue had not yet been fully litigated in New York State courts. And you're not supposed to be able to go to the Supreme Court until a state has fully litigated the issue. And so the Supreme Court
anticipated the election, and that you're saying they anticipated the election and decided to weigh in on it.
And so what the Supreme Court under John Glover Roberts, not totally and perfectly in every case, but by and large has become a protection racket for Donald Trump that should lower our respect in them. But, if the election results are really damaging to Republicans today in North Carolina and in Texas, you may see some more sort of pulling away, because remember, one of the key tenets of MAGA, no more foreign wars, with that Tulsi Gabbard clip that you played. And clearly, Donald Trump, who's had murder in his heart for many decades, Donald Trump, given the opportunity to get a great deal and embarrass Barack Obama, chose war instead because that's who he is.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your time always. And
Take care.
We'll look forward to next week. Yeah. Thanks. David Cay Johnston, everybody. Good stuff. Good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
I am anxious. Thank you, everybody, for being here. By the way, we had two great guests, and I'm super excited always.
And now, your comments.
Your comments have to be included, of course. CC Ryder says, September 1938, Hitler bullied Britain, France, and Italy to cede the regions of Czechoslovakia to Germany. They agreed in exchange for peace from Hitler. Yeah, it was the. This is, of course, the real original sin, if you will, of that war. Transfer occurred without a single shot. Hitler continued the war. Yeah. The idea that you could mollify a dictator, that you could in some way satisfy the unquenchable thirst for power. We saw it play out in the ugliest ways during the Hitlerian World War II years. And it's pretty ugly here. Hello, all. Found this show through Sarah Kendzior on Substack. Grateful. Yeah,
Yay.
Right on. Hello, Tellers. Tellers 007.
She has a great Substack. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's really terrific. We always link to it under her videos. Roll up for the Magical Misery Tour. Yeah, Richard Delamater, the original Beatles fan, with a shout out and callback to the...
Big shout out.
Yeah. To the mystery tour. Agolf says Texas oil and the Saudis like the cost of oil going up $12 a barrel in 2 days. Oh, yeah. Never thought of that. They're oil interests, of course, that are quite well served by the scarcity of oil, the problems in the Strait of Hormuz, etc., very much dictating the price of oil going up. He wants a show on HGTV.
That was a great comment. I love it.
Big shout out.
That's Donald Trump and the Drapery Show on HGTV. I love that. Romania Animal Rescue. It's been a minute since we've heard from them. How are they? Romania Animal Rescue, Inc. with a $50 super chat. I mean, that is...
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. Not from the charity. Keep going, Mark. Meaning it doesn't come from the charity, I guess, is that what they were saying? Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Romania Animal Rescue, and continue the good fight. The Black Forest Cupcake is amazing, says Annie about Sweet 106 Bakery. I'm telling you, it is so good. So good.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. There's a $5 super sticker from our newest viewer, Tellers 007. Thank you, Tellers 007.
Big shout out.
Lovely.
Yeah, really, really cool. But don't the drapes in the White House look nice, says Randy. Yeah, there's that. I mean, I guess you have to, right? Trump picked them out, and the work on the ballroom is progressing. Yeah, you're right. When you put it that way, it all feels better. It really does. I believe Trump's desire to take over other countries, Greenland, etc., says C.C. Ryder, mirrors Hitler's delusion. Oh, C.C. Ryder's about a lot about Hitler today. Hitler's delusion when he bullied and gaslit countries during the Munich Agreement to cede land to him. Yeah, it was all about the Sudeten lands and the very real way in which the world felt they sort of could manage Hitler. The Brits were the same way, right? I mean, that was the lesson learned, at least one of the lessons learned. You know?
As an aside, did you see the other day that Trump told a reporter that we might have a friendly takeover of Cuba?
No, I didn't see that. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be very friendly, amicable, you know.
Yeah, people love
Really
it when
nice.
you take over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did see this. Play them the, I thought this was interesting, just of the things that, you know, first of all, thank you, many of you who sent stuff to the show, and our email address is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. You got to put the markthompsonshow@gmail.com. And I have received some really cool things. You know, I can't watch some long podcast, guys. You can't do that. I don't have, but if you give me time code or something, then I can catch maybe a part of it. But this was sent to me, and I thought it was pretty good. It was the downed fighter pilot in Kuwait. This is in the first day of the conflict. Cut 8 is what it is, Tony. Thank you.
You're fine? Really? You need something to help you? No problem, you're safe. You're safe. Everything good? No problem. Thank you for helping us. Everything perfect?
I think that's, by the way, a female fighter pilot. So, yeah. The situation in Kuwait. Meantime, I thought it really quite instructive that this is a crew that really is the gang that is completely clueless at this insane entanglement and no real way to find their way out. And the Lindsey Grahams of the world and the warmongers that populate this administration, they really have taken control of Washington with a guy who doesn't really know much, really is there to redecorate, put up some buildings or structures that are monuments to himself. He wants to build the arch. He's put his name on the Kennedy Center. He's put these huge banners everywhere. There's one in front of the Justice Department. There's one in front of the Department of Education. There's a sense that this dictatorship is just going to grow and grow. And as far as Trump is concerned, he's concerned mostly with this self-enrichment and self-aggrandizement. And then when it comes to policy, you can see the way in which now this, again, gang of amateurs and then those who are motivated by a doctrine of some sort. It may be Christian nationalism. It may be a view of Middle Eastern politics and the balance of power in the Middle East that's been informed by decades. I'm talking about, again, the John Boltons of the world who even populated the first administration, and now you have the Lindsey Graham Lindsey Grahams of the world and those around him that populate both this administration and the last administration. And when you're surrounded by as many yes men as this guy has, and I mean it, generically when I say men, because, I think Susie Wiles is there to try to restrain him, but really they're just to kind of pat him on the back. He starts to get high on his own supply. He starts to believe that he can do everything and he won't answer for anything. And we saw that in the way in which he took out Soleimani in his first term. I think we've seen it in the way in which he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, didn't really suffer any kind of effects of that, negative effects of that. Then he went into Venezuela. He took out their leadership, and he's been taking out these boats that are drug boats and not really suffering any repercussions as a result of that. This guy is really, he's starting to feel it, And so, it's that crack high that is carrying him without a sense of any repercussions, and now he's gotten into this. And so, again, Lindsey Graham, who's out there running interference for him on Fox News, is and on Meet the Press and on all the Sunday shows, is making the case. And even in the face of American losses, Graham is out there trying to do the lifting for Trump. But I think the cold reality of the world economy beginning to sink, the oil prices beginning to rise, the leadership of other nations beginning to push back on the U.S., these are all things that will happen, I think, in the months ahead. And I do think it will be months. If he thinks he can back out of this thing in 3 weeks, I think he's got a real rude awakening that's happening. Again, was he on a gaggle and at the? You got it. Go ahead, Tony. He's this just happened.
The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have
This is the Cuban government is talking with us. He's
anything
talking
right
about
now,
Cuba now.
But
So
they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba. After many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy.
yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Is you haven't been really briefed on it since you were a little boy.
Something good.
Yeah.
I think very positive for
the people that were expelled.
The best thing that was done for Cuba was what Obama did, which was to open Cuba up. Cuba is not a threat to the United States. It's not some bastion of communism working. It's a failed state. Cuba is a failed state. It is a state that is existing under withering economic sanctions. It's a monument to the fact that communism doesn't work. You have a populace that's on the dole getting checks. They can't buy anything, really. There's special stores where they can buy things. But, you know, you and I go into any store. If we have the money, we can buy anything. They don't have that. The connection to the U.S. is real. Many have money flowing back and forth. And Obama began what was a real chance for the Cuban people. And Trump slammed the door shut on that. Because of an old world view. He just said it. I've been hearing about Cuba since I was a kid. Yeah, exactly. And you have an old world view of everything. And Cuba among those things. What's that, Kim?
I don't know if you saw the other day that there was a small boat off the coast of Cuba, and Cuba opened fire on the boat, and it had a couple Americans, some Cubans, and they said that the boat people had weapons and that they were there to do no good. And so they opened fire on the boat and they killed the people in the boat. That does not indicate that Cuba wants to give themselves over to the United States in a friendly fashion. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that it's going to be a friendly takeover. Does that sound a little ridiculous?
I think the takeover of any other country is seldom friendly. I mean, I think liberating troops, you know, I think that's a great vision. It's one we've seen that literally represented a reality in World War II's end, et cetera. But the even in post-World War II occupations, there was a cruelty and there was an opportunism. And I mean, you want your own country to be yours. You want your own neighborhood to be yours. So if there are a bunch of people who come from the outside, don't share any sort of a cultural heritage with you, or don't share any sort of common goals with you or interests with you, there may be a natural pushback. Now, I mean, it all depends, right? But I guess I'm just making a general point because I'm really saying no one likes an occupation. I've said this for years. I get it. You're the occupant, but you don't get it. I'm here to keep things safe. Yeah, but I don't like tanks on the street every day. And obviously, if you're emerging from a despotic regime that is informed by brutality and executions and imprisonment and all of these things that are horrible, that's different. You want to restore order, and you want freedoms restored. You want civil rights restored. But you're not looking for a continued occupation. I think that is of the sort of thing that you'd be dealing with in Cuba, right? Cuba's already a police state. I mean, if you go to Cuba, everybody's a cop. They're everywhere, and they're different kinds of cop. You know, it reminded me a little bit of Washington, D.C. If you go to Washington, D.C., there are more different kinds of cops everywhere. There are embassy police, there's Secret Service, there are National Parks Police, there are the Metro Washington, D.C. police. And then now, of course, you have ICE and all these. It's no fun to have people who are enforcers everywhere. And in Cuba, of course, they are enforcing laws that are quite arbitrary. So you could tell by the way they're dressed in Cuba. They have different kinds of uniforms or suit colors, and that indicates what kind of police officer they are. And you understand these are all positions that are coveted by people, because if you're working for the government, you kind of have a little bit of a connection to the power. But this is a country that deserves freedom, and you could really help them just by opening up their economy and giving them the kind of freedom that slowly will allow them to take power. So, I mean, I don't know how you move into Cuba. Who's going to green light that? You know,
It's going to be friendly, Mark. Don't worry
yeah,
about it. It's all friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Like
wink
how
and
you
a
gonna
handshake. It's okay.
But you
We're
don't
taking
understand.
over.
Right. We're here to show you freedom. Hi, Mark. Is that truth that the animal is out and Vance is our president?
What?
Eugenio de Arnal says, hi, Mark. Is it true that the animal's out and Vance is our president? Would have thought that Kim would have updated that if that's true. I don't know. But I love you, Eugenio de Arnal. Big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
All right.
I mean, I think that's I don't know if that's wishful thinking. Would we be in better shape with Vance at the helm? I don't know.
It's all awful. Vance, who was hip deep with the tech bros, Peter Thiel, who essentially made Vance. Peter Thiel hired Vance, put him in two of his companies. Vance didn't do well. He then moved Vance into a Senate race that was essentially purchased for him for $7 million. And then he made it in to the vice presidential sweepstakes, not only through Peter Thiel, but also through the Trump brothers, the sons. And so I think at the end of all of that, you have a guy with deep connections. I mentioned sort of the origin story because I think the connections to those tech bros is scary. Palantir is Peter Thiel. Surveillance of Americans is very much a part of what this state wants. So for all those reasons and more, I view Vance as dangerous. I can also make the argument that you're getting that right now with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is pretty much vacant on all the things I just mentioned. He doesn't really care if you got the greenbacks. He's ready to make whatever deal you want. Palantir, as you know, funded the ballroom. Palantir has huge contracts now, much bigger than they had before with the American government. And between Musk and between Peter Thiel and between the other tech bros who are very much populating the Trump administration or regime, you perhaps have, from a de facto standpoint, the same thing. You have J.D. Vance or Trump, it's about the same. The one thing I think I would say about Vance, if you just look at this Iran move, I feel like Vance, I understand he sings from the hymnal, he knows what to say. He wouldn't have done this, I don't think. It's so manifestly stupid that I feel, although I have to say, I mean, Rubio and maybe Vance has drunk the Kool-Aid on this as well. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't follow him day to day enough to really be able to tell. But perhaps he would have been on board. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is Trump's the mad king. J.D. Vance is the opportunist. He is chameleon-like in the way he's changed his view even of Trump. We've played for you the videos of Vance talking about Trump. Remember, he talks about him as a racist. He talks about him as a know-nothing, J.D. Vance trashes Trump in so many ways in archival videos. And now he drinks Trump's bathwater. So, so I guess that's a long way around of saying, I don't know, they're both pretty toxic. So I think the one thing that might be different is that I'd say J.D. Vance doesn't have the relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu that Trump has. Trump has a real relationship. They're really two of a kind, right? I mean, they're both the same. They're both really outlaws. They're both animated by a very small but vocal minority. Most of Israel is not in Netanyahu's camp. And most of America now is not in Trump's camp, certainly not supporting these policies. So that's the way I see the two. Obviously, Trump. I think Vance is weaker than Trump. I mean, Vance doesn't have any charisma. Vance doesn't have any telegenic quality. He doesn't come across. He reminds me a lot of Al Gore in a way.
He reminds me of he has the look of a Manchurian candidate about him. I don't trust that guy at all.
Yeah. No, well, he's definitely not one to trust. But I did want to mention something to you, which is
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to mention our latest partners in sponsoring us, and we're so delighted to have them on board. I'm talking about Zellman's Minty Mouth, and I know it seems like a weird thing to worry about or talk about, but you want your breath to not be the thing that turns people off at minimum, right? We take Zellman's in my house. Zellman's works because it's got a capsule inside this really fresh outside, which is, again, powerful mint on the outside, but then there's a capsule inside. And so inside the capsule is this parsley seed oil, and it interacts with the stuff in your stomach, and it neutralizes odors that cause bad breath. And so in your gut, it's doing all the work. And again, it's all no preservatives, no xylitol, no artificial sweeteners. So it's just parsley seed oil. It's a special blend, and it interacts with the stuff in your gut, and it really attacks bad breath. So what I was telling you is we road tested this for a month before I brought him on the air with us. Want to make sure that it really works. And we now take it for morning breath. So take it the night before. Zellmans.com. You use our discount code MarkT, you'll get 15% off. ZELMINS.com. Use our discount code MarkT. Zellmans.com. MarkT at checkout, you'll get 15% off. Check it out for yourself. I mean, I think you'll really be impressed. It really does work. Zellmans.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, I have limited time. I want to make sure there is no there's no comment that has gone uncommented, unacknowledged. Was there anything else I needed to get to today, Tony? Was there anything else I needed to get to today, Kim? I thought I had I do have a couple of things I know. Don't want to get in too deep on stuff, but by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about the fact she thinks that, it's wild to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're talking about this with Anthony Davis talking this way, but she's saying that she thinks Trump could attempt to use a national emergency declaration to cancel the midterm elections. Greene said she could, quote, see it happening. Trump doesn't seem to care about the midterms. Who wants to bet he'll declare a national emergency, she said, because of Iran or some other manufactured crisis, and try to cancel the elections in November? Again, there are all sorts of things going on. You saw what Elon Musk was doing in Georgia, sending out ballots. These are completed ballots.
What?
Yeah, it's against the law. He was reprimanded for that. You can
Do you mean like real ballots, or like, when the teachers union used to send my mom a bunch of check marks, like, here's what your ballot looks like.
Yeah,
here's Google it.
Right. Here's what you should be doing. I didn't see one, but I saw that the court, he was warned. So it must be more than a sample ballot. They've been sending sample ballots out since the beginning of, printing. But yeah, check it out. I think you'll find, and you heard David Cay Johnston talk about the fact they did restore that Republican congressional district. So again, the redrawn districts in New York look as though they may not be as redrawn for Democrats as they were. Nancy Mace is under investigation by the House Ethics Committee, and that is related to allegations she may have engaged in improper reimbursement practices. I see. Yeah,
That's not fake. That's real.
The committee wrote in a statement on Monday. This is the Committee on House Ethics. They wrote in a statement just yesterday, they received a referral from the Nonpartisan Office of Congressional Conduct, the OCC. The board of the OCC writing in a report that there is substantial reason to believe that Nancy Mace is engaged in improper reimbursement practices. The expenses around her D.C. property through 23 and 24 amount to about $10,000. Wow. $10,000 seems like such a quaint amount to be defrauding the U.S. for. And Kristi Noem is refusing to retract statements that she made calling those Minnesotans who were killed by the federal agents, they were executed on the streets of Minnesota. She called them domestic terrorists, and she will not retract that statement.
Never apologize. That's their whole MO, right?
She was grilled by the Senate. And this is the first time she's appeared on Capitol Hill since the killings. She evaded a question by the Judiciary ranking member, Dick Durbin, who's this Democratic senator from Illinois, about whether she would take back the accusations about Renee Good and Alex Peretti. When we have these situations happen, she said, when we have these situations happen, we always offer our condolences to those families, and I offer mine as well. Durbin noted that the leaders of ICE and Customs and Border Protection, both of whom testified before the House Judiciary Committee last month, said that they did not provide information to Kristi Noem that Peretti was a domestic terrorist. She said in response, again, no one's told you they're domestic terrorists. No one on ICE has told you that. No one from the Customs and Border Protection has told you that. Why did you say that? She said, I was getting reports from the ground, from agents at the scene. I would say that it was a chaotic scene. So it's hard to say you were wrong, Durbin said. What I know and what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us, said Amy Klobuchar, asking Noem about the actions in Minnesota. Noem, it appears, evasive, and in the end, again, there's been examination of Noem. There have been articles written about Noem. There's been even that meeting on Capitol Hill. There's Dick Durbin talking to her. Do you have the video? I didn't realize we had it.
Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video, who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Is it so hard to say you were wrong?
We continue, as these investigations continue to go, we will provide, I absolutely strive to provide factual information, and we'll continue to do that.
And when you fail, do you admit it publicly?
Absolutely. We always know that there's room for improvement, that we will.
Steve Porter Jr.
Stop the clock, so.
Steve Porter Jr.
Wow. I mean, people should be angry.
Yep, and they
People
are.
should be angry. You have a recklessness and a brutality that informs the world of ICE and of Department of Homeland Security. You also, if you care about wastefulness, you have an insane waste going on. As you know, it documented her planes, documented her, she and her boyfriend fly around with the, this already tricked out plane. They want another tricked out plane. I mean, between the Patel grift and the Kristi Noem grift and power grab, it's crazy. And again, I ran for you the other day the attorney for ICE, who said that he left the agency because it was clear that there are new directives that are such that new ICE agents aren't going to be trained in any kind of responsible way. They basically pick up a badge, a gun, and a bulletproof vest, and they send them out on the street. This is the state of things in America, while now Americans are overseas fighting a war of choice. Iran strikes the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia, says Tammy. Americans urged to evacuate. Yeah. I think this is just part of the emerging story.
Yep.
So there'll be a lot of that. The last thing I'll say is that to the extent that one has to be concerned about the stochastic terrorism that may occur, the one-offs here and there, the Trump administration under Kash Patel got rid of the special unit that was designed. It had Iranian training in Iranian terrorist and domestic terrorist motivations and planning. They were kind of like the SEAL Team 6 of sussing out that stuff that was related specifically to Iranian terrorism and terrorist plots domestically in this country. So the idea somehow that you could animate these various sleeper cell networks in the U.S., you have a special collection of skilled people. They're skilled in the language. They're skilled in the communication centers. That is to say, how these various cells communicate. Kash Patel fired them all because of questions concerning loyalty. Many of them were involved in investigations that were tied to Donald Trump during the Biden administration. And as a result, Kash Patel fired them. And so as you worry about these things that make America vulnerable going forward, one has to be aware of the fact that this administration, even as they're saying they're protecting the homeland as they fight overseas, are really letting the homeland down at home because of these firings and the way in which they've gutted these agencies of any expertise with the very people in the very areas that they are fighting in. So, global stocks sell off and oil surges as Middle East conflict intensifies. Yeah, I mean,
if it was all about the economy, stupid, I think we have trouble.
Yeah.
Did you
just on that?
I have an electric car, but I filled up my car yesterday thinking the price of gas is going to surge.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You saw that the prediction markets, maybe we could do something on this, Kim, tomorrow. The prediction markets, there's a whole poly market way in which you can bet on what's going to happen, right?
Sure.
And there was a huge bet placed an hour before the conflict in Iran started. And one can't help but think that those in the administration, those connected to the administration, are privy to any number of things and would certainly cash in on the kind of opportunistic situations that would present themselves. And so I would, we'll do more on this, but I would always just mention one last thing in relation to poly market and the prediction markets, and that is that they were really being outlawed. There it is, calls for regulation. Thank you. That's exactly it, the headline. Yeah, what was it? Give me the headline again, though, could you please? Yeah, the headline is calls for regulation grow as poly market bets on Iran war top 529 million. Yeah, there you go. And then that's the graph that's related to that. I see. Mm-hmm. So I just was going to make the point that there were regulations in place under Biden. They were actually outlawing a lot of this, and the Trump sons are big backers of the poly market and big backers, and they found real friends, these prediction markets, in the new administration. And so that's where we are. So there are not going to be any regulations associated with that. But this is a crew that I think senses opportunity and takes that opportunity. So I have one last comment. The Last Angry Manny says, the U.S. government has created their own Marx Madness. Yeah, sadly, ain't it true? I'm told we will do a Marx Madness. I've got to talk to will it be Thursday, Albertson? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll ask him about exactly what the timing will be. But yeah, we're going to be debuting some new drops for it too, which are associated with, I think there's some As I recall, there's some.
This is so ridiculous.
Yeah, there's one of them. That's they're going to be some. What's her name drops? You know what I'm talking about.
The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time.
Yeah,
this is crazy.
There'll be those kinds of things coming in. A guy on TV said last night he was in a crab restaurant in D.C. and Trump cabinet members were in there discussing the war plans the night before. I'd seen that too, Gregor. Yeah. So many opportunities to use inside word from this administration.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Great chatters, great everybody joining us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
David Cay Johnston. Thank you, Anthony Davis, Kim, Tony. Until tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.